acceptable sacrifices at a huge profit. Acceptable sacrifices at a huge profit. Acceptable sacrifices at a huge profit. In short, there was fraud and greed and dishonesty right in the outer court of the temple. And when Jesus saw that, we read in John 2:15, when he had made a whip of cords, he drove them out of the temple with the sheep and the oxen and poured out the changers' money and overturned the tables. Of the changers' money and overturned the tables. Of the changers' money and overturned the tables. It doesn't say that he got his guys together and did this. He did it all by himself. You can see him walking through the temple with anger, seeing how they had distorted the purpose of the temple. And he's pushing over the tables. And he's angry. The same should be true of you and me. It's wrong for us to be angry with one another. But men and women, we should be angry about some things that are going on right now. We should be angry about babies being aborted. We should be angry about child abuse. We should be angry about domestic violence and drugs. We should be angry about what's going on at the border. We should be angry about a lot of things. It's not wrong to be angry at what's wrong in culture, but it is sinful to be angry at somebody else. Paul says we are to be angry, and then he qualifies the command with three negatives. Do not sin, don't let the sun go down on your wrath, and don't give a place to the devil. You know, the old idea is for couples, don't get mad at your spouse, don't go to bed angry. And I've heard of some people that have stayed up for 2 or 3 weeks because they want to get things right. So John Phillips gives us this advice. If you have to be angry, if the cause is righteous and the provocation is severe, then let the storm burst, but make sure the expression is not promiscuous or prolonged. Let calm follow the storm, and be sure that your fellowship with God is not broken. If you get so angry about something that you can't pray, you're too angry. If you get so angry about something you can't come to church, you need to deal with your anger. If you get so angry about something you can't come to church, you need to deal with your anger. If you get so angry about something you can't come to church, you need to deal with your anger. We need to put off the old way of life, reactionary anger, and put on the new way of life, which is self-control. I wrote this down. I read this someplace. It goes like this. The more you grow up, the less you blow up. And that's all about your Christian growth. When you grow up, you end up being in control of anger. So Paul says the Christian lifestyle is tell the truth. Control your anger. And here he's going to talk about money. Verse 28, he says, let him that stole steal no longer, but rather let him labor, working with his hands what is good, that he may have something to give to him who has need. I remember reading a story about a Soviet factory worker who attempted to steal items from his workplace. Every day he filled his wheelbarrow with cylinders and iron and ore and tools, and every day as he left, he got caught, and the stuff was taken away from him. Finally, he was fired. And on his last day, the commissar waited for him to come out with his contraband. And when he arrived at the door, the commissar pulled back the cover from the wheelbarrow, and there was the usual stuff. He confiscated everything, and he said to the thief, you are a fool. We caught you every single day, and you got away with nothing. Mr. Commissar, he said, you are the fool. I've been stealing wheelbarrows. There's such a thing as stealing because there is such a thing as ownership. There's such a thing as stealing because there is such a thing as ownership. There's such a thing as stealing because there is such a thing as ownership. God dignifies us as his children by giving us work to perform, property to maintain, and rights to uphold. There are only 3 ways to acquire property: to work for it, to receive it as a gift, or to steal it. And in verse 28, Paul addresses all 3 of those things. He says, let him who stole steal no longer, but rather let him labor, working with his hands what is good, that he may have something to give him who has need. This couldn't be more appropriate for our discussion today. This couldn't be more appropriate for our discussion today. This couldn't be more appropriate for our discussion today. This couldn't be more appropriate for our discussion today. This couldn't be more appropriate for our discussion today. This couldn't be more appropriate for our discussion today. This couldn't be more appropriate for our discussion today. This couldn't be more appropriate for our discussion today. Never has that instruction about stealing been more appropriate than it is right now. In our day, stealing and theft has taken on a whole new meaning. Day after day, we watch on television as gangs of young hoodlums crash into jewelry stores and department stores, and using hammers, they destroy display cases and stuff the products of the stores into bags and run out of the store having stolen everything they can get their hands on. And they are getting by with it to the point that many such places of business are closing their doors. If you go to Chicago, there's a street there that Don and I used to walk down when we went to Chicago, Michigan Avenue, and seeing the photographs of that strip of merchants is really sad. Most of the stores are closed. We're living in a culture of thievery and stealing. And Paul says, if you're doing any of that, stop it. Let him who stole steal no more. Some of the Christians who first read this letter came to Christ from a background of thievery. They were shoplifters and cheaters and burglars. And Paul was saying that if they stopped stealing, instead worked hard with their hands to earn a livelihood, they'll have something of their own to share with others. And I wrote this down because I think this is a really cool thought. This verse is a striking description of the conversion of a new believer. The thief becomes a philanthropist. The thief becomes a philanthropist. The thief becomes a philanthropist. Look at the verse. Do not take what is not yours, but work so hard that you may be able to give to others what is not theirs. You get it? Don't take from somebody what you don't have the right to take, but work hard to make money and give something to somebody who may not be able to get it. Don't be a thief, be a philanthropist. That's the style of a Christian. That's what a Christian is like. Honesty is almost a surprise, isn't it? Christian is like. Honesty is almost a surprise, isn't it? Christian is like. Honesty is almost a surprise, isn't it? We live in such a corrupt culture where stealing is like, if you can do it and get by with it, then it's not wrong. That's the way they believe. The person who did wrong in order to meet his own selfish desires before he became a Christian now has to work in order to contribute to someone who needs him. What a reversal. I mean, instead of stealing from others, the former thieves were to give to others. Based on this verse, I advise all of us to work hard to earn a living and then use some of what we earn to help other people. The Christian life is about the aggressive pursuit of what is productive and beneficial. Are you getting this picture that Paul is painting for us as Christians? Don't be messing around with the truth. Christians, don't be messing around with the truth. Christians, don't be messing around with the truth.